On this episode, we'll discuss tips to prepare your church's staff and volunteers for Easter. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Moore. How are you today, Jess?
Hey, Kendall. I am doing great. Sun is out today. Almost feels like spring. So I'm feeling really
It
good.
is like a hint. It is like a hint here in North Carolina. It is like we've had a lot of winter. At
Yes.
this point, we've
Yes.
had the snow, we've had the ice, we've had all the things,
Yeah.
but we are just starting to get a little bit of that sunshine, and it
Yeah.
is feeling like light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. It's life-giving. It's a
It is
lifeline.
life-giving.
I'm so thankful for it. Yeah.
I'm excited about it, and that's kind of right on time to our
Mhm.
topic that we have today because we get to talk about Easter, which at the day that this podcast episode is going to premiere is 46 days away, which is kind of
Okay.
mind-blowing. Um,
Yeah.
how fast, time goes, but at
I
the
know.
same time, it does feel good to be jumping into spring.
Yeah. Well, and Easter's early this year. Like, we haven't
Yes.
acknowledged that. It's so
Yes.
early. So, yeah, that adds like a little component of like,
Yes.
we got to hurry up and get this going. So hopefully
That's
this
right.
podcast episode is super helpful.
I think that this is going to be a good episode because we've been releasing a lot of resources lately on Easter. I know that you have a
Yeah.
webinar that you're working on. I know that
Mhm.
we've got several blog posts, some ebooks, a lot. I mean, just a ton of resources in this season, a couple podcast episodes.
Yep.
What's fun about this podcast episode today is that a lot of times we talk about planning our services or we talk about getting
Right.
things ready for, those first time guests or getting the communication just right. But today we get to talk a little bit more internally, a little bit
Right.
more behind the scenes. We get to talk about our teams,
Mhm.
preparing our staff members and volunteers and all of the people who are actually making Sundays happen.
Right. So
We get to
important.
talk about it is, and we were kind of. I was thinking about this earlier. It's like our staff and our volunteers. They're behind the scenes. A lot of times, the members or the average attendee may never see all of the hard work that
Yeah.
goes into these Sunday services, especially on a big day like
Yeah. A big
Easter.
weekend, really. I mean, you've got Good
Yes,
Friday. It's like
absolutely.
it's a full weekend. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, I think that because of all of that, I think this episode is going to be really valuable, and it's going to be useful for all any lead pastor, any executive pastor or volunteer coordinator, or really anyone who's serving behind the scenes at their church. And so I'm excited to jump into it. It's going to be good.
Let's do it.
Before we jump in, we've got to encourage all of our listeners, hit that follow button to make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're enjoying our show, whether that's over on Apple or on YouTube or Spotify. I know there's some Spotify ones out there. I'm a Spotify user, but
Yeah.
statistically, I know that there's not as quite as many podcast listens over on Spotify. But hey, if you are on Spotify, very cool feature is that you can leave a comment, which we
Mhm.
love reading those, which I'd love to hear from all of our Spotify listeners out there. But wherever you're enjoying the show, make sure that you're following us. We want to make sure that you stay in the loop and, be able to get the best of all of these resources as we're releasing them. So definitely do that. And I say, let's dive into this conversation today. Are you ready, Jess?
I am ready. Yes. Let's go for it.
All right. So today, what's cool is we're going to talk all about preparing your church's staff and volunteers for Easter. The way we're going to do that is through some practical tips.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got several of them written down here, and I'm excited to jump in. The first tip that I want to offer is when you are planning and preparing for your church's staff, your teams, your volunteers, make sure that as a leader that you are talking it up early and often.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me tell you a little bit about what I mean with that. When you're to get preparing these team members for a big day like Easter, you want to make sure that they are hearing about it, first of all, early, right? You
Mhm.
want to be talking about it way before it happens, even before you're telling your people who are sitting in the seats, who are sitting in the pews.
Right.
So you don't want to rely on your stage announcements to be communicating this big day
Mhm.
to the people who are going to be serving. You want to be talking about it way, way early so that you can go ahead and be getting them in the mentality of the things that are coming up. But
Right.
also, not you got to be careful how you talk about a big day like this. You don't want to ever have like a sense of dread, like, oh, Easter's coming up, and act like it's like a not an amazing thing. This
Right.
is a celebratory day. This is a day when we know statistically that
Yeah.
more people are likely to come to church than on a typical Sunday.
Mhm.
Probably your in your top 2 Sundays of the year are Easter or Christmas, and so
Right.
when you're talking, not only are you talking about it early, be talking it up, getting excited
Mhm.
about it, and
Yeah.
whatever your plans are gonna be, maybe you're adding extra services, or maybe you're gonna add special elements, or whatever it's gonna be. Maybe it takes a little bit more manpower, so you're trying to get
Right.
extra volunteers, or maybe it is, what'd you say, just Good Friday? Maybe you're doing something extra on that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, right? You gotta be talking about it and talking it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sets the tone, right,
Mhm.
for how you approach this
Yes.
busier weekend.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's an opportunity, really. At the end of the day, this is the reason it's so important to have to have these services well staffed is because it's an opportunity, right? You obviously attendance goes up. It's no secret. We know that like
Yes.
literally statistically this is a fact. So
Right.
what an opportunity, right? And these people are coming a
Mhm.
lot of times they're not coming because they're curious about your church or they're wanting to explore what it means to attend church. They're coming because it's a tradition or they're coming because grandma asked them to, right? Which again isn't all the more an opportunity. Like they're there and they're listening and hopefully paying attention. And so, what a beautiful
Yeah.
opportunity to show the love of Jesus to someone who may not ever set foot in a church the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So, having that communication, like you said, Kendall, kind of, upfront as far in advance as possible with a spirit of like, what an incredible opportunity this is.
Yes.
This is one of those messages that you want it to be like almost feel like FOMO, like don't miss out on this incredible thing
Yes.
that God is going to do. We are
I like
prepared.
that.
We want, so you get to set the tone and you get to set the expectation. And you can do so kind of shifting gears to expectation. You can look at your numbers from previous years and try to have some level of understanding. Has your overall membership, your number of congregants grown in the last year? What percentage increase did
Sure.
you see, little pop on that weekend? Um, and then to your point, Kendall, what kind of special elements are we doing, throughout the entire weekend? Friday night services are not common. So that's a whole other service that you have to kind of staff for.
I'm thinking about.
And
Yeah.
so, but that's my favorite service of the year. Our church does that so beautifully. And it's
Mm.
literally like I love it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's incredible. Yeah, I think whatever your plans are, you're gonna wanna be able number one, figure it out as early as you can, which,
Mhm.
listen, no judgment here. If you're still figuring out some details, now
Yeah.
is the time you can say, "Okay, today, with this many days out, we're gonna, we're gonna put it all down. We're gonna get it solidified, and
Mhm.
then let those folks know that are serving on your staff, on your, volunteer teams. Let them
Mhm.
know now so that they can plan because they've
Mhm.
got to plan their family activities. They've got to plan their schedules, and anything that that you're going to need from them. It needs to be communicated. So let them know. Build it into think about our church's teams. We have huddles whenever we're about to serve. You need plenty of time to be talking about those in every
Right.
huddle that's leading up to that special day. You're
Yeah.
going to want to be sharing any of those extras. Okay, we're going to
Mm.
do the Friday night. Okay, we're going to be doing an extra service. We're going to be doing whatever.
Right.
Communicate
Right.
those things. And then also just think about all the places that you talk to these volunteers, talk to these staff members. Okay, so you're going to obviously want to bring it up in any meetings that you have and be continually talking about it. Your emails to your team, your group text, your
Yeah.
whatever communication that you're using to talk with them, you're going to want to include it and make sure that you're repeating this information as much because clarity comes from that
Yeah.
consistency. Right.
Agreed. Big piece on clarity there. Making sure you have an idea of as much as possible that you're going
Yeah.
to do so that you're not changing the plan, right? So that's another big piece. Like as it gets closer, like, oh, we've
Yes.
added 5 children's activities. Here's
Right.
where you can find that information.
Right.
Then they're left scrolling and that feels really
Right.
confusing. So concise, kind of all of it in one message. And then as much as you can, stick to the plan, so that we're
That's
not
right.
confusing people, right? Yeah, that's a good call out.
That's a good point. Well, the next tip that I want to kind of talk about is and shift to is that not only are you going to want to let them know what your plans are and be planning about those things earlier, but you're also going to want to remind these staff members, these volunteers, remind them of the win. What
Mhm.
does winning look like?
Yeah.
We know that Easter weekend it's likely going to bring in more people. There's going to
Mhm.
be unchurched. There's going to be some spiritually curious people. It's going to be
Right.
some family members. It's going to be all of these different things more than, the other weekends of the year. I
Mhm.
would just remind them up front to keep the main thing. Like
Mm.
why are we doing this? Not just because we enjoy coming together with seeing everybody. I mean, which we do, right?
Sure.
It's so many good things. We like dressing up a little extra
Mm.
on Easter, all the good things that come with
Yeah.
Easter. But we also just we got to remember the why
Yeah.
this role matters, why volunteering matters, why coming in and on Sundays makes a difference. And it is
Mm.
all because we're trying to communicate that hope of Jesus, right?
Right.
And so you have to kind of take a step back from all the busyness and all the plans. It is not just about filling a spot or a role on this
Mm.
Sunday morning. It is about creating spaces where people can have life change. And I always like to encourage our folks to just listen. These are just because you're serving in a volunteer role or serving on a staff doesn't mean that on a day like Easter or honestly any Sunday that
Right.
God can't be speaking to you too, right? So this is just an impactful day all around. We've got to remember the why.
Yeah, I think too, the more you can make that feel tangible, personal, the better
Mm,
too. So, like, stories here, testimonies are a great option. You know, I was gonna say, kind of trying to remember pull-in stories from previous years, but that feels really far away. So unless you're doing a great job of documenting that stuff, which you should be, that might be a little bit a lot. But absolutely,
wait,
it's the
yeah.
Easter
Would you
story.
say? Would you say a story? I mean, like even
Yeah,
something just as simple as if you can remember last year, how we had a family come in who had said they hadn't been in church in this
right.
many years, but they finally came on Easter. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just
Yes, yes,
as
yes.
simple as that,
Yeah.
right?
If you remember that family, then by all means, that's definitely that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's far away. But all that aside, the Easter story is literally
Mm,
the climax of salvation. Like, it's the climax of our faith. It is the most
yes,
important story, right?
sure,
So,
yeah,
that alone is a great reason. This is the best news that we can share with anyone ever. And so, kind of leaning into that and just reminding your staff and your volunteers, it is so easy to just have that mindset of like, it's the busiest weekend of the year. No, I mean, yes, but also like, it's the most important weekend of the year. I think more so even than Christmas, because the
yeah,
salvation story is the whole message. That's the whole thing.
yeah,
What a full of hope and joy and um I mean, what a wonderful story in and of itself, let alone stories of, people who came and were impacted in past
yeah,
years, and so all of it, all the storytelling, this is a good way to leverage your storytelling here to inspire participation from your
yes,
volunteers, enthusiasm, just purpose in the reason why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, I think it's
that's right.
super important to constantly keep that on the forefront.
Let me really quickly tell you something that our church staff has done that I think is just such an easy win for something like this. Yes, sometimes it can be a little hard to get those stories and that kind of thing. A
Mhm.
quick tip that we've done is our pastor sometimes will ask us. He'll say, we have these little cards that we've used for different experiences where we've said like, "Who is your one?" And kind of
Mm.
put that challenge out there. Who is the one person in your life that you or would love to see come to know Jesus, come to be able to experience the freedom in Christ, be able, to
Mm.
experience these good things? And to be thinking about someone by name and then sharing that as a staff, sharing that as a team and
Yeah.
being able to show those names. And so it kind of gives a little bit more, it makes it a little bit more real
There's a face
for the
there.
people there's a
Yeah.
face there, there's a name there, and we take those and we actually put them on a board We do that as a staff. We've done that, and so that we are literally praying as a staff leading up to Easter. So
Mm,
as early as you can do this, whether it's a month out or 2 weeks out, whatever, so
yeah.
that you're praying for those people, and it just puts a little bit more. It makes it feel a little bit more real than
Yeah.
just some.
That's good.
We want to see a couple more people walk in.
I
That's
love that.
specific.
I love that. So you're saying expand that into your volunteers if possible. If you do that, want to do that through
Yeah.
your chat would be, I think, a great place for this to happen. Everyone kind of throw a
Yeah.
name in the chat. That's going to also pop up the engagement within the chat. Like if someone hasn't seen a few things, like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
getting like
Yeah.
15 messages right now. Let me check out what's happening over there. I think that while I have your attention, everyone, here's some changes or whatever. I think that's overall, in general, it's very effective way to make it feel personal, make it feel
Yes.
real, and then make sure that you're continuing to, you know, bring that
Yeah.
engagement along the way. That's awesome, Kendall.
We want to talk about a win when you are serving. Just I think about our guest experience team. We help out with that a lot at our church. When you know that team has been praying, you've been constantly praying for that neighbor, just for example, to
Sure,
show up, and they
sure.
finally show up, and you get to say, "Hey, that's such and so that we've been praying about," and
Yeah,
they walk. I mean, it's an amazing experience with your volunteers, with your team.
yeah.
So
So cool.
it's
I
very
love that.
cool. All right. The next tip, number 3, is to go big with your volunteer vision. Here's what I mean with this. Sometimes on busy seasons and busy days, I think about, it- Christmas and Easter. We pair those things together because they have a lot of similarities in the church world in terms of
Mhm.
doing extra.
Yep.
But, we start thinking about in our head, we build it up as something hectic, or we build it up as, oh, it's going to be crazy. And so we just start, it can be very easy to be ruled by minimums when you go with it
Yeah,
with that mentality.
that's good.
I would say Easter is not the time to go minimal.
Okay.
You could here, I would say that you can almost never have too many volunteers
Yeah, yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to a big day when you know that there's going to be an increase in people coming.
True.
Easter is also one of those days where, okay, this family may come once a month or that family over there may come twice a month. But here's the thing that on a day like Easter is everyone's going to try to come on that Sunday.
True.
And so
Yep.
that's it's going to be an increase of people. If only it's just the people that you recognize that come on kind of that frequency.
Sure.
But here's the thing: ask the dream question. Okay, if volunteer numbers were not an issue, where would we like? What would be our ideal placement? How many volunteers will we want in the parking lot? If we could,
Mhm.
there were no minimums. If we could have anything, how many
Yeah,
people would we have in the lobby? Or would we have, what would our band look like that day? Or how many people would we have in the tech booth? How many
this is
kids
good.
ministry workers would we need to have that day? If you don't think in minimums, but think about like what is that ideal scenario,
Yep.
you can take that and you can build to that
Mhm.
with a vision of, man, this is if we could really do it right, if we could bring our best, if we could serve on Easter with the spirit of excellence,
Yeah.
this would be what it is. And you can take that vision and then you can communicate that with people that you're trying
Mhm.
to get involved rather than saying, hey, would you mind? We're going to need a couple of people in this
Right.
area. Like
Yeah.
it just completely changes the kind of the posture of
Oh,
how you're approaching
100%.
it, right?
100%. I feel like having those tangible numbers are they communicate more effectively, right? So if you get up on
Yes.
stage and you're like, "We need, a couple more volunteers for the parking lot," right? Like,
Right.
everyone's like, "Oh, someone else has got it." If you get up there and you're like, "We need 5 more volunteers for the parking lot," I mean, I don't think we would ever do this, but, like, call people out, like, "Raise your hand if you'd like to volunteer today for the parking lot." We don't do volunteers like that, but if you're interested in being one of those 5, scan this QR code, and I'm assuming this is gonna be a tip a little later down the road on how to actually get people to participate, but, yeah, I think I think this allows you to communicate with a lot more intention and, specificity on what your needs are, and then what the expectation is for those people, right? Like, generally speaking, the people that are gonna step up to volunteer are people that have maybe attended your church at least a few times, right? So it's not gonna be your brand new folks
Absolutely.
unless the Holy Spirit
Yes.
moves and they're like, "I love this church already. I wanna work in the parking lot." Cool. That's awesome. Otherwise, they kind of know just by looking baseline, I know what the expectation is generally for a
Yeah.
parking lot attendant. I know what the expectation is maybe for child check in, probably not in the classrooms or whatever, but you get what I'm trying to say. If they know what the
Yes.
need is and how many people you need, they're much more likely to maybe raise their hand to get involved. I completely agree with that.
Well, and the thing that I would just really say is, you can think I know we talk about logistics a lot and figuring
Hmm.
out kind of, how do we make all these different things happen?
Yeah.
Think back to your last big day. So think back to, if you don't can't remember all the way back to Easter, think back to this past Christmas.
Sure.
Think about the last time where you had a lot of people, more than your typical Sunday, and think about the bottlenecks that happened. Oh man,
Hmm.
check in was so slow that day because we really needed extra help. We
Sure.
really needed extra in the parking lot. We really needed extra here, whatever that may be.
Mm,
And that's the numbers that you want to increase as you're planning for this day. Even, think about some of those roles that maybe would be nice to have, something that you wouldn't normally do on an every Sunday basis. But say, like, if you need extra floaters that day in your
yeah.
lobby, more people that could help when you're, with your first time guests and things like that, plan
Yes.
for that overflow that you're hoping for. And worst case is that you have some extra people who got involved, right? It's not going to be the end of the world. Getting those backup volunteers, getting those extras, it just helps to
Absolutely.
plan for margin more than just your minimums, is
Yes,
what I would
yes.
say.
Yeah, back to the very first thing, you can't have I don't think you can have too many especially if you've got a good, like, process and system and we know where everybody's hanging out,
100%.
right? You don't
Yeah.
want people willy-nilly walking around like, "I don't really have a job, but I'm supposed to be standing here and I got a badge," and so
Well,
that's
and we're gonna talk about that too, for
okay.
sure.
Yes, if they have a purpose and you know what they're supposed to be doing, if you've got extra people, thank you, Jesus. That's a huge win for that weekend.
So, our next tip is, okay, we're talking about getting all these volunteers. We're talking about having, that you're properly staffed for these days. I would say make sure that as a leader
Mm,
that you're combining serving, so they're serving on a Sunday morning, but you're also combining that with spiritual care. You have to have both
right.
the serving experience and also the spiritual side of this. Here's what I
Yeah.
mean with this. Not Yes, Easter is an important day that we wanna make
Mm,
sure that we're making a way for folks to come in, for new guests to come in, all these extra people. But at the same time, we wanna make sure that your people who are actually serving, your volunteers, are cared for, that
yes.
they get to experience Easter. And so
Mm,
this, depending on your church, your style, the way that you go about this, how many services you have, this may look different, but I think the key thing is that you're making sure that they get to have their moment as well. So
mhm.
for some churches, if you have multiple services, some will do like an attend one,
Right.
serve one model,
Sure.
where
Yep.
for one of your services, they're going to come and they just get to sit and they get to enjoy and they get to take
Mm,
it all in. And another one, they get to be all in to serving in that way. Some of them,
right.
depending on the amount of services, you may attend one and you may serve two, or you may serve three,
Right.
whatever that looks like. You want to make sure that you're getting that opportunity, that you get to come and experience the good
Mhm.
things that is there. I will say there have been seasons in our own church where we would do a volunteer only service, and
Ooh,
that was
interesting.
we've done that early in the morning. We have done that on a Friday night, which it is kinda
Mm,
interesting. You were bringing up Good Friday. I was like, "Man, that could actually be an interesting thing to do something really special on Good Friday," even if it was only for your volunteers. These are the things that only really your specific church can speak to. As
yes.
a leader,
Right.
like, what makes sense in your context. You know the amount of staff members or the amount of
Mm,
volunteers that you have. I would just say go about it with the spirit of, we are going to make sure that they get to have a moment to really celebrate the resurrection themselves, and they get to receive as well, right?
yeah. I'd almost venture to say too, with these types of services where there's just more that is going on, right?
Mhm.
I would kind of like package this into one beautiful thing. You are going to have a
Mm.
huddle, expectations are set. We make sure everybody feels good, everybody has what they need. If you've got the Easter shirts that day, whatever is needed, right? You're setting these people up for success. You guys are meeting together, you're prayed up and you're fed. Sometimes the tendency is to do like a thank you after. I wonder if there's not an opportunity leading up to, again, that would require a little bit of earlier planning, but can you organize that, thank you celebration moment for them in advance with an opportunity to get everybody huddled up,
I
so
love
expectations are set, but then they're feeling
yeah.
already poured into, in addition to allowing them to have that opportunity to attend an Easter service themselves. Yes, for sure.
I love
Um,
that you brought this up because I wasn't planning on sharing this, but something that our church is actually doing this year is we planned strategically with this to have a team night that's just a couple of weeks before Easter
yes.
so that we can celebrate all of the things that they've been doing, pour into them, and also communicate big vision for what's coming
Mhm.
to kind of, again, going back to the first thing that we shared is
Yeah.
really just amping up and communicating how, this amazing day and our plans
Yeah.
for that. But I love that that kind of speaks to what you said is that,
Yeah. You're
you're
welcome for
you're
that idea,
pouring into
Kendall.
them. Yeah. I think that it's really just making sure that they are taken care of. And
Mhm.
I know that that's important. Sometimes we just have to be reminded of that sometimes.
Right, especially if they're serving 2, 3
Mhm.
services.
Yes,
That's
come
a lot.
on. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we wanna
yeah.
make sure that they have their time.
Mhm.
All right, so the next tip, number 5, is to teach and model what we're gonna call shoulder tapping. You're like, "Kendall, what in the world are you talking about?" I've heard a couple of different leaders talk about this in the past. Tim Stevens, who's been on, our podcast before, is one of them. This idea about you really wanna make sure that you are personally reaching out to invite people and
Mm.
encouraging your staff, encouraging even your volunteers to personally invite, to just give their friends, their family, their coworkers, the people that they are experiencing that they're close to in their life, to tap them on the shoulder in this
Yeah.
season and say, listen, I would love if you would serve with us this
Mm.
Easter. It's those personal asks because here's
Right.
the thing, as a leader in your church, you're just not capable of
Right.
being close to everyone who is in the seats on a Sunday.
Exactly.
You do not
Exactly.
have the capacity. But here's the thing is that's what the body of Christ is. That's what your church family is, right? Is
Mhm.
that you have
Mhm.
people who are close, you have friend groups, you have families and different things like that. What if you encourage your volunteers or your staff to go and just find one person. Hey, tap them on the shoulder in this season and say, hey, we would love to get you involved this Easter. Would you be up for
Yes.
serving with me? Oh
Mhm.
man, I'll hang out with you. Come hang out with me and serve on this team on
Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah.
And that completely translates or that completely that's a completely different experience than
Mhm.
just a all call from the stage,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yes, yes, definitely. Actually, I can speak to this in my personal life. I'm on a committee. This is a little different. It's not church relevant, but same idea where it's volunteers, right?
Yeah.
I serve on a committee with my kids' school. There's a big event that we plan every year, and I recently just I sat next to someone at a meeting for school, and I just was reminded of how wonderful she is as a human being. And
Yeah.
after I left, I was like, she would be fantastic at helping with this
Mhm.
event
Mhm.
because she is kind and joyful and organized and X, Y, and Z. And
Yes.
so as God kind of and I reached out to her, I said, "Girl, is there a world where you would have the bandwidth to help with this event this year?" And
Mm.
she, to my surprise, said yes. Can you believe it? So I think there is an opportunity to recognize people around you and say, you have a
Yes.
skill that would really be beneficial on this team,
Yes.
or
That's right.
even just speak to your own experience. Serving is so wonderful and fruitful for the servers as well as the people being served, right? And so maybe
Yes.
even speaking to that, like, hey, just try this out one weekend. We need additional volunteers.
Yes.
Just check it out. Just check it out for this weekend. It'll be great, and then allow that. And I would say too that this kind of like goes into kind of what Ben Stapley said in our one of our recent episodes about Easter planning, but like your job is to ask, the Holy Spirit will do the work for
Yes.
them on the reply
That's right.
piece, right? And so, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Kendall. Is a huge difference between that personal ask versus just being called from the stage. So if you're already on the team serving, or if you're already on staff, you understand hopefully those needs too. And again, back to the
That's right.
specifics, like we've got a number, if we know what teams are needing, lean into that too. Like, hey,
Yes.
there's not room on my team this year, but we definitely need a parking lot attendant, and I know you love parking lots. So why don't you sign up for that team or whatever?
Well, and what's cool about that, I think I think the part that we may not think about when it comes to having those personal ask from other volunteers is that the person that's being asked to join this, they kind of think like, okay, so I trust this person who's
Yeah,
asking me.
yeah.
And I kind of feel like it makes them feel like, okay, I've got someone in my corner that's gonna look after me, that's
Oh,
gonna make
yeah.
sure I don't look
I'm not doing
foolish.
it alone. Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
gonna do this alone. I don't have
Right.
to figure it all out. I've got someone that I can ask, someone that is gonna have my back in this. And so
Yeah.
I think that's why it works. Just when you're pitching this idea to your volunteers or to your staff, just bring up some stories about. I
Yeah.
even think about my own life when someone asks me would you want to give this a try? And it could change the trajectory of my life. And so,
Yeah.
like, celebrate stories of those successful shoulder taps, so to speak,
Mhm.
and that way, it gives them that courage to go and to try it. So,
Yeah. Love
can
it.
make a huge difference. All right, number 6, our next tip is to make the ask to serve, to volunteer, to get involved clear and simple. Make the ask clear and simple. Here's the thing, we can't assume that people know how to help. So,
Right.
like, we put it up there, a pastor may go up there and include in their sermon, you've got to get involved or you've got to lend a hand. But we've got to realize that just we have that curse of knowledge, right? Like,
Right, right,
not
right.
everyone really knows where the help is needed. They may
Mhm.
not recognize the way that we do. I was about to say the parking lot. We've talked about the parking lot a lot that someone may not realize who never goes back and sees, that our kids ministry, they may have
Right.
no idea that we need some extra people in the
Yeah.
nursery.
Yeah.
They may
Yeah.
have no idea that our tech team, our production team really could use some extra hands back there with
Yes.
cameras or with the live stream or whatever it may be.
Right.
But if we can clearly articulate where the help is needed,
Mhm.
if we can clearly explain what that commitment looks like, you're
That's
not going to be
huge.
locked down to this for every
Yeah.
Sunday from now
Yes.
until the kingdom come, right? Like
Right, right.
this, and I even like think the idea. I've talked about this before on the podcast. It can be temporary. It can be
Mhm.
an Easter only ask,
Right.
just for this day. We're looking for some extra help in this area, or
Mhm.
during this month, or over the summer, or whatever it may be. But here's what we know: confusion is going to kill that momentum every time. People just aren't
Absolutely.
gonna figure it out on their own, right?
Yes, and so we've talked about this in, like, volunteer conversations before. We've done a couple episodes on supporting your volunteers well or setting that ask well. I think specifically for this weekend, if you're adding additional, experiences or snacks or whatever that might be, I highly recommend you have a paper version of what that expectation looks like that you can
Sure.
hand out if there's people that are interested. So from the stage ask, like, "Hey, if you're checking out how you can serve our church. We have,
Yes.
need for 5 people in on our greeting team. We need 5 people to stack chairs, whatever that looks like. Have you a QR code ready to go so people can like either, look through those opportunities on, their phone.
Yes.
Probably not in service is the best time, but like after the fact, have a station, QR code, some physical handout brochure, just
Yes.
style with like a list of expectations. And we've also talked about this too, like where do I put my purse when I get here? What time do I need to be
I'm
here?
glad that you brought
My
that
purse.
up.
Like
Yes.
those types of little things can be included. Like maybe one side is like housekeeping, and then the other side is I want to children's. This is what it looks like to serve, on
That's
this
right.
in kidsmen or whatever. But I think the more clarity you can bring in advance to these things, and you can make it clear and simple, right, in a way that they can literally read, take it back, refer back to it. Even that
Yes.
morning, like, hey, do you guys need a refresher? We've got these same brochures. They're over there if you want to take a quick look, whatever. I think that's
Yes.
so beneficial to have a thing that they can look at and they're not trying to remember everything you said, especially for
Well,
you.
I love that you said something as practical as where am I going to put my purse? The
Yeah.
thing that I think about so often, and it's because I see volunteers at our church forget this all the time, is what time do I need to be there? What
Mm,
time is the huddle? What
Right.
time do I leave that position? All those different things to the point where it's like, if you have the availability, if you have the capability of doing this, put it on a wall. If you have a room where your volunteers meet, put
Absolutely.
those time,
Yeah.
print it out, put it on the wall.
Yes.
Because I've literally had people take pictures of, okay, this is the time so that they, don't have
Right.
to go fumbling through their emails and things like that. It's the
Yeah.
simple things.
Prepare.
Also, be clear about, okay, maybe someone volunteers once a month or every other week or whatever, but you're trying to get everybody there on Easter Sunday to serve or to
Mhm.
volunteer.
Mhm.
Communicating what the exact ask
Right.
for that day is, because it may
Mhm.
look different.
Mhm.
And even I'll say this for the staff members out there, make sure that you're clear with your expectations of what it is to be a staff member on this particular day.
Right.
Okay, on normal Sundays, we ask you to be here on this time and you stay through this time, but
Yeah.
for this particular day, we want all of our staff. These are the expectations. Be here at this time. We're going to gather here for this thing. We're going to, whatever it is,
Mhm.
making that clear and simple and being upfront with that
Right.
rather than having mismanaged expectations later. Well, I can't believe that this staff member didn't do this, or I can't believe that this volunteer didn't do this.
Right.
Well, we have to step back, right, and make sure that we're making that clear and simple from the
Mm.
get go.
And what a
So,
reminder, Kendall, that, like, this weekend, because there's an influx of need for volunteers,
yeah,
is that is the that's their preview to what the experience is at your church,
yeah,
right? Like, I
yeah,
yes, it's more stressful, yes, it's more chaotic, and you're like, on a normal Sunday, we don't
yes,
it doesn't look like this. Well, if their
yeah,
experience wasn't great, then there's a less likely chance that they're gonna wanna become a part of the
yes,
volunteer, team permanently at your church, so, like, no
yeah,
pressure, but also think about that with
yeah.
how clear and simple, you're communicating those expectations.
I love that.
Yeah.
Such a great point. Our next tip, number 7, and you're gonna love this one because you've mentioned this several times already, Jess. Create an easy on-ramp for those
Love
new volunteers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, your girl loves a process. I
You're
can't
right. Listen, it's you bring up good points with this. Easter, I say this all the time. A big day like this, it's the perfect entry point for someone to get involved.
Right,
But you've got to make it clear. You've got
right.
to make it simple.
Yeah.
That may be if you're going to ask from the stage and do an all call, get
Mhm.
that QR code ready. Get that
Oh, yeah.
link on the front page of the website ready to
Yeah.
go. Wherever you're going to be, I don't know your style of your church. If where you communicate is a bulletin or a bulletin board, wherever you communicate, your
Mhm.
church email, you want to make sure that it's there, that people have a clear place that they know that they can get
Mhm.
signed up, that they can say yes, that they can opt into this experience.
Right.
Then also have that clear next step ready to go. So
Mhm.
we've talked about this before. Maybe you do a volunteer training. A
Yeah.
lot of I was, just hearing about a church the other day. Whenever they have someone that wants to join the team, they'll have someone who does a personal Teams call or, I was about to say Skype. Does anyone use Skype anymore? I don't know that they do.
No, Kendall.
Uh, what am I thinking?
Zoom.
What's Zoom? Okay, there we go. There we go. Not Skype, definitely not Skype. A
That's
Zoom call, to get them oriented on that on their schedule. Listen, depending on how hungry you are for that new volunteer,
Yeah.
that's gonna maybe look different. For
Mhm.
us at our church, it looks like we have a special day that they can stay after one of our services,
Sure.
and they can plan for that. Every church is gonna be different, but
Mhm.
make sure that you have that on-ramp, that you have a place that they can sign up that's easy, a
Right.
place that's, they can get trained really easy, they can get
Mhm.
oriented, and I would say if you are gonna do something that's like a, just try out serving on Easter or commit for one day, I think it's perfectly okay to do things a little bit differently. So, you can have a kind of a streamlined sign up process that would
Yeah.
remove any friction for just that one day.
Yeah.
However, this is a good time to call out that, you got to make sure your systems are in place for things like background checks for
Yeah.
those
Yep.
applicable areas
I was
for
gonna
your
talk
kids'
about
ministry or, whatever that looks like,
Mhm.
but also having like your scheduling system that's in place, that basic training, have that ready to go before the Easter rush hits. Like, don't
Yeah.
wait till the last minute and you're trying to figure it out the night before. Like, come on, like
Exactly. Well,
that's
yeah, that is things like background check solution too, like, you have to build in a little time for that. So,
it's a good point.
I don't know, admittedly, because I personally have not been on the coordination side of
Mhm.
facilitating volunteers. I don't know that every single role requires a background check,
No,
right?
in
And so
most places, yeah.
what?
In most places, it
In
does
most
not. Kids ministry, student
Sure.
ministry, some people will do for
Yeah.
stage. If you're doing, personal information, things like
Right.
that.
Yeah. 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 So, like, back to the parking lot attendant, I don't think they need a background check. So, if you've got volunteers that are kinda come in at the last minute, like, let's put them somewhere where they won't be required to have a background check. And you wanna be
100%.
totally you can communicate that too if they're saying, "Hey, I love babies. Ugh, we are so thankful that you love babies. Unfortunately, we require a background check. We don't have quite enough time to do that for you. Can we put you on the list for a different service for babies? And this weekend, we really need help X, Y, and Z where we don't
Yes.
require a background check." So I think it's perfectly fine to communicate that. In fact, I think it's neat
100%.
for people to be aware, like, oh, wow, they do background checks for kids ministry. How lovely and
That's right.
safe. I love
That's
that.
right. Very good points. And again, it's just streamlining that process and making sure that it's, removing that friction, whatever it may be. And I love that you said to, just communicate clearly. And I think it's perfectly okay to be honest and say, we can get to that later.
Sure.
But for now, maybe we are stuck on parking lot. We're going to say on the front door, maybe.
Greeting team. Yes.
Greeting team. There you
The
go.
greeting team. Yes.
That all leads us into our next tip, which I think is going to work hand in hand with this. And that's
Mhm.
number 8, train for confidence, not just coverage.
Yep.
What you don't want to do is get 15 new people in for
Mhm.
Easter Sunday. You
Mhm.
recruit them, you put them in the spots, and they don't have a clue what to do.
Right. Right.
That is, we talk about is can you have too many volunteers? You can have too many volunteers if you do not have the capacity to train them. Like
Yeah.
you gotta make sure that they know what they need to do, what the win is, what
Mhm.
that goal looks like for that position for that day. Because if you just leave them to their own devices, they're not going to do what you need them to do, and they're
Right.
probably not going to have a great experience. It's going to
Yeah.
be like a one and done type
Right.
volunteering situation,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. I can think of a few things that we can do here to build that confidence, but one of the
Hmm.
big ones is, we talked about having like a maybe before Easter event.
Yes.
But or even like a Skype, not Skype, Teams, not Teams, a Zoom call with
Zoom. There we go.
the rest of the team. I would say, like, if possible, have a Zoom call with that entire team of volunteers so they can recognize faces. That would build confidence, be like,
I
"Who
like
can
that.
I ask about this the day of?" They're serving because right, you're facilitating volunteers for a number of services. So just because they've gotten to know you, dear
That's right.
recruiter, doesn't mean that you will be there to help them the day of that service. And so if they have an opportunity to at least have a few minutes of face-to-face connection with the people that they will be serving with that Sunday, that gives them an anchor for the day. Like, okay, this is the person that's going to be overseeing your team. This is the person that can answer your questions. That would
Yes.
make me a lot more confident going into the week.
Absolutely.
In addition to because even then, like, if you didn't tell me where to put my purse, at least I know that I can ask Karen where I put my purse because I know that Karen is in charge of my team, right?
That's exactly right, and it's just bringing back just not too long ago at our church, we have a guy that leads all of our small groups, and we did I'm trying to think, it wasn't Zoom, it was a Google Meet, so we're
Okay.
covering all the video conferencing services on this episode.
Love it.
But he had all the groups and just took us through a 30-minute training on
There you
just
go.
reminding us what it looks like to
Mhm.
have a
Yeah.
great group or what it looks like to be a great group leader.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, it made such a big difference, and you can I mean, that is a good point. You can see those faces, and
Mhm.
other people to ask if you run into something, and so
Yeah.
clarify those expectations, make
Mm,
sure that they have the training that they need, and
mm,
then always, just make sure that you're doing it with, in an encouraging way.
right.
These are people who are, serving and, they're giving of their time. You wanna make sure that yes, we're communicating excellence and teaching towards that, but also just making sure that they're having a great time through
Yeah.
the experience, I'd say is pretty important.
Yes. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think too, man, if you're not confident and you don't know where you're going, it sure is difficult to serve with a smile.
Yes. You're right.
So,
You're
like,
right.
at the most
A
basic
confidence,
level,
yeah, like
like, confidence is, communication breeds that confidence in what you're supposed to be doing in your team, so I think it's really important.
all right. I've got a super practical Easter tip for this next one for number 9.
Right.
And here it is. This is something that I feel like every volunteer in these churches are going to say a big amen on this.
Okay.
Over prepare your kids ministry team for
Mm.
Easter.
Can I get an amen?
Can we get an amen? Every, nursery volunteer, every, they're saying amen on the other end of this podcast.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
certain.
Yes.
I would say this on this day, on a big day like this, you want to make sure that you have everyone prepared in your kids'
Mm,
ministry to make sure that you can handle um, check ins. I think about that. You're going to have an influx of people who maybe they haven't been there in over a year since last Easter.
right.
They're not going to know your check-in process like you normally do.
Right.
You're going to need extra volunteers for all of those rooms because what if this one age group has 10 times the normal amount and then the other group only has 2 times the normal amount,
Sure.
and you got to you can shift things around.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you have people who can float, who aren't tied down to certain
Mm,
different things,
yes.
extra volunteers.
Yeah.
You're going to make sure that you have your safety and all of your protocols in place, but
Right.
all of us have over prepare that
Mhm.
kids ministry area.
Yeah. Yeah, and, yeah, I just thought of one tangible practical thing. It's not directly related to volunteers and staff, but it
Mhm.
sure will help them is, where like you mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, Kendall, where were the bottlenecks last year, right? So
Yes.
can you prepare for that with additional people, but also do you have an extra iPad laying around that you
There you
can
go.
bring and have
Yes.
for check-in? Can you have someone standing with said extra iPad and find that
Yes.
mom who just looks like she's about to start bawling because she finally got her kid and their Easter stuff, and then they, I don't know, threw up or something. Like, there's always the
Yeah,
mom. You can see
absolutely.
her from a
Yeah.
mile away. She's about to start crying. "Hey, mama, let me help you. Here's the bathroom. You come in here and, get your kiddo cleaned up. Let's get you checked in." And so having additional people, but then also additional tools if you need them. Today's the day to use them.
That's
I
exactly right.
think bring out the big guns, whatever you've got. Definitely, definitely helpful. I was gonna
We
say something else and I can't remember, but go ahead.
Well, we know that parents decide if they'll come back a lot of times
Yeah.
largely based on their kids' experience. If
Yeah.
their kids are, you know, do not have a great experience, if they're coming out of there crying, if they're, having a hard time getting checked in, all of those different things, it
Yeah.
makes a lasting impression because you're as a parent, and I've been there, whether it's visiting
Mm,
a new restaurant or visiting a new place or a daycare,
mm,
how your kids respond. I mean, it makes such a memory for
it
that place.
does. It really
So
does.
it's important. Practically speaking, increase the adult to child ratios
Yeah.
for Easter weekend.
Mhm.
Make sure that you have your check-in system ready to go. Maybe get extras. Come on, here, put in the order, the Amazon order. Make
Yeah.
sure you got lots of your labels, extra rolls of labels
Yeah.
that you're going to do. Make sure that you have volunteers who can just float if that one random class has a bunch of extra people.
Right.
Have that signage ready to go and just encourage these people because I'm convinced the kids ministry workers, staff, or volunteer, they're just saints at this point. They are
Yeah.
carrying such a heavy load, and it
Yeah.
makes such a big difference to our
I'm gonna I'm
churches.
gonna add one more thing, Kendall, and, this just literally came to my mind and my heart, but, there are a lot of families that don't attend church on a
Mm,
regular Sunday morning because their kiddo has special needs and it feels too
mm,
difficult. They
yeah,
may attempt to go to church on Easter morning.
yeah,
Bear that in mind. You've got your online congregation that may
yes,
want to come that day. You've got families who would otherwise maybe not come, but they are. You've got family members who are visiting church for the first time with a
yes,
special needs kiddo. Specifically, just spending 2 seconds here. If you have someone on your kids' men's staff that is already equipped to
mm,
help with special needs children, what does it look like to request them be on call this
mm,
morning for every
yeah,
service? That's a big ask. Maybe you've got other, people at the church who can serve or help in that capacity.
right,
You've got
right,
wonderful teachers. I guarantee you've got amazing teachers in your congregation that are equipped
yeah,
to handle kids that need a little bit extra attention, a little bit extra help. And so maybe that's a special ask that you make on a Sunday morning just to have people specific to that need, excuse me, available that morning to really love on those kiddos. I guarantee you that
yes,
mom, that dad, when they see we are ready for your child, Oh,
It's
man, does that
amazing.
open a
Yes.
door, not only for them to keep coming to your church, but to Jesus. Like,
Yes.
it is
Huge.
this one of my favorite episodes that we did was I don't remember his name, but
I was just thinking about it. We can link it up in the show notes. That was
we'll
a great
link
episode
we'll
for
link it up in
this.
the show notes because it was incredible. I was very emotional that entire episode, but truly, this is something that can change someone's life, and it can be super impactful. It's often overlooked. I think churches don't always do an awesome job of meeting special needs family where they need to be met. And so this Easter,
Yeah.
definitely put it on the top of your list if you have the capacity. I think it would make such a huge
I
impact.
love that. Love your heart in that, Jess. And that's so true. It can make such a big difference. Like I said, I'll link that up in the show notes. I can
Yeah,
think about what episode that was, but we will definitely
yeah.
link that up and go check it out because that was an amazing episode.
It really was, yeah.
Uh, the next tip that I want to share is something that I think is something that is just a good reminder. I mean, for every church in this season.
Mhm,
Yes, it's a busy day. Yes, it's a busy time, but we want to make sure that you honor volunteer relationships. Let me
mm,
tell you what I mean with this. Yes, it's gonna be a time when we're trying to bring our best and we're trying to get a lot of people involved, and we've said, no, you don't have to have, there's no such thing as too many volunteers, but just remember that there are gonna be many volunteers who are gonna invite people
right.
on this day. They're gonna
Yeah,
have family members who are
mm,
gonna wanna come to church and, finally come around to being there on that day. They're gonna have, people that they're bringing, and they wanna have a good church experience with their families and with their friends as well. Help them think through how to balance serving and also hosting or being present with those people. And
mm,
I would say this,
oh,
so if you have to err on the side of protecting those relationships over filling a role. And
mm,
so if you have a team member or a volunteer who's been praying forever for, months and months and months for this family member to come on this day, and they say, "Oh man, they're finally going to come on
yeah,
Easter Sunday."
yeah,
Listen, you can find someone else to hold the door open that day. You can find someone else that can serve in that one service for
right,
that one so that they can be present and they can enjoy and go sit beside them
sure,
as they're being in there. So I would just encourage your volunteers to be thinking about this ahead of time. Encourage them to be inviting their friends and their family,
exactly,
but
exactly,
then given that permission to prioritize those relationships when needed and offering just that flexibility.
right.
That they don't have to feel guilty because they committed to holding the door or, I mean,
Yep,
whatever role it
yep.
is.
Well, and you've already
Um,
planned for the margin, so you should be good to go, right?
that's exactly that. I mean, that's the way to go about it. And here's the thing it just communicates is that we prioritize people over these positions.
Goodness, yeah.
And it is going to be it just reinforces that long-term discipleship that comes through this kind of thing
Mhm,
rather than, short-term gains of we've had, double the amount of volunteers on this one important Sunday. So
totally, yes.
lean into that. I want to jump through this next one. This will be our final tip for today. And we want to end it on this, number 11, and that is just to celebrate your volunteers and your staff loud and proud and often.
Yep,
Here's the thing is that we know that they are working behind the scenes. There's
right,
so much that goes into a big day like Easter.
yeah,
And it's just, I'm telling you, it just goes so far to say a thank you.
yes.
Say it publicly. You don't want to
Mhm,
celebrate them from the stage. Listen, you got to enjoy all of the great things, that extra photo booth, the special elements that we had in kids, the
yeah,
Easter egg, all because we have an amazing team that made
right,
it all happen.
right,
Celebrate them publicly. I would even say spend a little extra time, build it in
yeah,
so that you have the time to do those special whatever that extra is. Maybe
right,
it's a handwritten note, maybe it's and we always on big days we feed breakfast to them. We get, we do it up. We get the biscuits, we get the gravy, we do all the extras for, feeding our volunteers that just to thank them for serving on a big day.
mm,
But it can be something as simple as just like letting them know the week before that you're praying for them.
yeah,
Just whatever that extra looks like,
mm.
make sure that you're thinking these people who are working so hard to make it all happen.
I love that so much, and I'd say too, if you're able, if you've got the bandwidth, those folks that are serving with you for the first time, if you can, take an
I like
extra
this.
minute to, whoever is hosting that day, first of all, get your names ready.
That's
Walk
good.
up to that person and say, "Hey, Paul, I'm so thankful you're here. We could
Yes.
not do this without you this weekend." So say thank you, and then if you just make them feel seen. My goodness, that like
Yes.
it is a
Yes.
sacrifice that morning, right? Like you want to be with your family. There's your personal traditions that you're trying to incorporate, and then
Yes.
it's a lot. It's a lot. It is a sacrifice and it's
Yes.
wonderful. It's worth the sacrifice so much, but boy does it make such a big difference when people feel seen. And so yeah, and then too kind of tying this into by feeling, celebrated or seen or heard. If you get feedback from them in real time like, "Hey, I feel like we could maybe even just turn the line this way and it would make a big difference." Own it,
Yes.
Paul. Make it happen. I totally agree with you. This is a
I
great
love
idea
that.
or whatever.
Great
But
idea.
just, yeah, if you remember their name, especially those first time people, remember their names, tell them thank you personally. If you've got bandwidth or capacity and you can buy a chocolate Reese's egg for all of your volunteers with a
100%.
little thank
Yes.
you card, or we have a coffee shop at our church and they always do a cup of coffee for like new people,
Yeah.
but just grab a stack of those and go hand those out.
Yes.
Here, get yourself some coffee in between services,
Yes.
whatever that looks like. But I think spend a little extra time if you can't get to everybody.
Yes.
Try to prioritize at least those first time volunteers so that
Yes.
they understand like when you're doing this with us, it means a lot. So, yeah, that's my recommendation on that one.
I love that, and it's just, think this can come in the moment, it can come
Hmm.
before,
Hmm.
it can come after.
Right.
What would it look like on Easter Monday
Sure.
to sit down and, for each team leader to go through and just send a quick text and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I noticed how you did blank, how
Right.
you
Right.
showed somebody where to go that
Yeah.
was there for the first time, and
Right.
I could tell that it made a big difference for them."
Yeah.
Okay, that was a text that cost 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
That was the
Hmm.
cost of that. It didn't cost dollars, it just took a few minutes,
Sure.
but it goes a long way. I love that you just mentioned Reese's. How do we go through an episode of talking about Easter without talking about a Reese's egg? Yeah, bring on the Reese's, that's what I
Yeah.
say.
Just pass
Let it
those
give
out.
them a little give
You
them
are,
a
you'll be happy.
yeah, whatever it may be, just let them, like, communicate that you're thankful for them, and,
Right.
you know, all of these tips, they lead up to making it smoother for those staff members,
Yeah.
for those volunteers, because we know that there's a lot of pressure for
Mhm.
leaders to have this great, big, amazing Easter experience. But here's the thing, I want to remind you, leader, Easter is not about perfection.
Mhm.
It's about that purpose. It's about
Right.
celebrating the resurrection. It's about treating your people with care, making sure that they have what they need, letting them experience the good things that come
Mhm.
with the season. And so, communicating up front, setting those expectations, giving them something to be excited about, reminding them of the why and that vision,
Yes.
making
Yes.
sure they feel supported. All of these things can help them to serve with confidence and bring the joy of the Easter season. And
Yes.
so I hope that these things have been encouraged. I don't know, Jess, I want to try out some of these extra ideas in this
Yeah, I
season at
really
our
want an
church.
Easter egg, but also, yes, I definitely want to
All right, I'm gonna have to go
try out
find a
new
Reese's
things.
egg after this, I think.
I
And,
know.
for all of our leaders out there, we hope that this has been encouraging to you. And overall, we just are praying that you have a great Easter season. We're cheering you on, and we believe that your volunteers and your team, this is going to be your best Easter yet. And
Mhm.
so,
That's
thank you for being on here talking through this with me today, Jess.
sure.
It's been a fun topic as we figured out that we don't use Skype anymore. We
You
use
sure don't.
all of the other things.
That's right. That's right.
But
Yes.
also, for all of our leaders out there who are listening, I just pray that this has encouraged you. And if it has, would you consider sharing it with a friend?
Mhm.
Help spread the word. We want to keep equipping leaders just like you. Again, follow along wherever you're enjoying our podcast and leave us a review if this has been helpful to you. Until
Yeah.
next time, keep leading well, and we'll see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.